My fiancé slapped me because I refused to wear his mom's old dress for our wedding. Now that mama's boy can go ahead and marry his mother. I thought I had it all figured out at 24. I was engaged to a guy I'd been with for 6 years. He's 25, and I really thought we were in love. Looking back, it feels like a joke. It's hard to believe I missed all the signs, but that's what happens, right? We only see what we want, especially when we're holding on to the dream of a perfect love story. We got engaged in April 2024, and I was so excited, thinking of our perfect wedding. We set the date for next May, which was supposed to be romantic because it was the anniversary of when we first met. Now, I can't believe how naive I was. I spent so many nights lying awake, dreaming of our life together. In July 2024, we started planning the wedding. I was thrilled and chose a light blue and white theme, thinking it would be beautiful for spring. I spent hours on Pinterest, making mood boards and sharing ideas with my fiancé. I should have noticed something was wrong when he barely showed any interest, but I just told myself he was busy with work. I remember staying up late researching venues, caterers, and florists, putting all my energy into creating a perfect day. I'd send him links and ideas, and he'd reply with a quick, looks good, or just one-word texts. I thought he was just letting me have my dream wedding. Now, I know he simply didn't care. He was probably spending more time talking to his mom about each detail than actually planning with me. It's important to mention that my ex-fiancé, yes, ex-fiancé, is an only child. What I didn't realize was that I was signing up to marry a mama's boy who would always prioritize his mom's wishes over mine. He'd call her every day, sometimes more than once, and would check with her about everything, from the car he wanted to buy to what we should have for dinner. At first, I thought it was sweet how close he was with his mom, a sign that he cared about family. A couple of weeks ago, I went wedding dress shopping with my mom and sister. It was supposed to be a special day, a memory I'd hold on to forever. We went to several shops, trying on one dress after another. In the last store, I found the dress, a beautiful, elegant gown that made me feel like a princess. It only needed a few adjustments to fit perfectly. I was so happy. I remember standing in front of the mirror with tears in my eyes as my mom and sister admired how beautiful I looked. For a moment, everything felt perfect. I felt like the bride I had always dreamed of being. I was so excited that I sent photos of the dress to my fiancé, and he replied that it looked beautiful. I felt like I was on top of the world. But I should have known he'd rush to show those pictures to his mom, like a kid showing off a good grade. That's when everything went downhill. My future mother-in-law, or should I say, the woman who would have been my mother-in-law if her son wasn't so attached to her, saw the dress, and she completely lost it. She called me right away, but I was still out with my mom and sister, so I didn't answer. I figured I'd call her back later, thinking she might just be excited about the dress I'd chosen. When I got back home, I found her waiting for me. She had let herself in, probably using the spare key we'd given her for emergencies. She was sitting there like she owned the place. I walked in, still feeling happy about finding my dream dress, but that joy vanished the moment I saw her angry face. As soon as I walked through the door, she went off on me. She jumped up from the couch and started accusing me of lying. According to her, I had promised to wear her old wedding dress, a dress that was probably ancient and full of moth holes. But I never made any such promise. All I could think was, where's my fiancé? Why isn't he here standing up for me? I was totally caught off guard. This woman, who I thought liked me, and who I had tried so hard to please for 6 years, was now calling me a liar right to my face, in my own home. And all over a dress that I never agreed to wear. I tried to stay calm as I explained to her that I never made such a promise. I had never promised to wear her dress. But did she listen? Of course not. Instead, she started yelling, her voice getting louder and sharper with every word. She kept calling me a liar, saying I didn't deserve to marry her precious son, as if she was doing me a favor by letting me join their messed-up family. I was so shocked, I couldn't even respond. I just turned around and walked to my room like a child who had been scolded. Even with the door closed, I could still hear her shouting. After what felt like forever, I finally heard the front door slam. A few minutes later, my fiancé came into the room. He had the nerve to ask me what had happened, as if he hadn't heard his mom's yelling from wherever he'd been hiding. I looked at him, this man I thought I knew and loved, and felt nothing but disappointment and betrayal. I told him my side, still in shock from the attack I'd just gone through. And do you know what he did? Instead of comforting me, instead of standing up for me, he started explaining his mom's side. He said that, apparently, when we first started dating 6 years ago, his mom had shown me her wedding dress, and I had supposedly said I'd love to get married in it. Now, I have no memory of ever saying that. Sure, 6 years is a long time, and maybe I said something just to be polite when I first met her. But to promise I'd actually wear her dress? No way. Besides, have you seen the style from 35 plus years ago? That dress would look better in a museum than on a modern bride. But my fiancé was actually taking his mom's side, entertaining the idea that I had promised to wear it and was now breaking my word. I went to bed that night feeling completely alone, even with him sleeping next to me. I tossed and turned, replaying the day's events in my head, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. I thought about all the times I had put his family's needs before mine, all to keep the peace. And for what? To be treated like this? The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages from my future mother-in-law. Each one was like a stab to the heart. She called me a liar again and again, saying I wasn't good enough for her son and that he shouldn't marry me. I couldn't help but tear up. I had tried so hard to be liked by this woman. I showed my fiancé the messages from his mom, hoping he'd see how cruel and hurtful she was being. But instead, he just said, "She's probably just hurt that you don't want to wear her dress." Just hurt? Seriously? She was attacking my character, trying to push him into calling off our engagement, and all he could say was that she was just hurt. I couldn't believe it. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about a dress anymore. It was about respect, standing up for myself, and having a partner who would support me no matter what. And suddenly I realized I didn't have any of that. I had spent 6 years with a man who would always put his mom's feelings above mine, who would never truly stand by me. I tried to explain that this was our wedding, not a chance for his mom to relive hers. I told him I wanted to feel beautiful and comfortable in my own dress on my wedding day. But he couldn't understand why I wouldn't just wear his mom's old, outdated dress. He kept saying it would mean so much to her, and, "Can't you do this one thing for her?" As if I hadn't already done 100 things for her throughout our relationship. The more we talked, or rather, the more I tried to talk and he brushed off my feelings, the more I realized how deep this problem went. I started looking back on our relationship, remembering all the times he had put his mom's opinion above mine, her needs before ours. How had I missed it? I suggested compromises. Maybe I could wear a piece of jewelry from his mom, or add some lace from her dress to my veil. But no, with them, it was all or nothing. Either I wore the entire dress, or I was an ungrateful liar who broke promises. My future mother-in-law kept calling and texting, guilting me and outright insulting me, and my fiancé did nothing to stop her. In fact, he seemed to agree with her more and more. I tried to stand my ground, reminding them that it was my wedding too, and that I should get a say in what I wore. But they wouldn't listen, acting like I was being unreasonable, like I was causing the problems. They made me feel like I was the crazy one for wanting to wear my own dress at my own wedding. Update 1. You wouldn't believe the circus my life has turned into after the disaster with my future mother-in-law, if I can even call her that anymore. I decided it was time to have a serious talk with my so-called fiancé. Let me tell you, it went about as well as you'd expect when talking to a mama's boy who can't let go of his mom. I had to wait until he finally gave me a moment because, apparently, his mom's feelings are more important than his future wife's. When I finally got to speak, I said what should be obvious, that I wanted to wear my own dress on my wedding day, like any other bride. Is that really too much to ask? But guess what he said? He had the nerve to tell me the wedding was also for our parents. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was marrying him, not his entire family. I didn't realize saying yes to him meant saying yes to him and his mom. I managed to stay calm, somehow, and explained that unless his mom was paying for the whole wedding, this was our wedding, not hers. But of course, common sense doesn't work on someone stuck in mama's boy mode. Then, because I clearly enjoy making my life harder, I reminded him that he originally said my dress was beautiful before his mom got in his head. And do you know what he admitted? He said he only told me that because he thought it's what I wanted to hear. He actually thought it was ugly. The level of manipulation in this family is mind-blowing. But I didn't even react. What's the point? It's obvious honesty isn't a strong point for them. Instead, I tried to be the bigger person and suggested wearing something else of his mom's as a compromise, because that's all I do in this relationship. Compromise, compromise, compromise. But oh no, that wasn't good enough. He said I should be grateful his mom even offered her dress, as if it were some great honor. Should I kiss her feet next? Maybe offer my firstborn too? At this point, I'll admit, I lost my cool. I asked him straight up if he was marrying me or his mother. A fair question, don't you think? If he wants to be so close to his mother, maybe we should just call off the wedding so he can go live his happily ever after with her. They'd probably make the perfect couple. Well, that really set him off. He started yelling, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing and that his mom's request wasn't a big deal. I couldn't handle it anymore. I stormed out and called my mom, the only sane person in this whole mess. I poured my heart out to her, telling her every single detail. At least someone was on my side. She was shocked, to say the least. She couldn't believe how my fiancé and his mother were acting, and it felt like such a relief to know I wasn't the crazy one here. When I went back downstairs, ready to continue this ridiculous argument, guess what? He was gone. The coward had run off to his mom's house, leaving me nothing but a text saying he'd stay there until I came to my senses. Well, here's the thing. I have come to my senses. I'm seriously rethinking this entire relationship. If marrying him means marrying his mother, then I want no part of it. I wanted a husband, not a package deal with a controlling mother-in-law as a bonus. Update 2. First, thank you to everyone who commented and showed support. It means so much to have people backing me in this nightmare. I talked to my mom again, and she only confirmed what I already knew. My fiancé is acting like a childish, spineless mama's boy. So yesterday, the queen bee herself, my future mother-in-law, called me and said we needed to talk. Foolishly, I agreed. I should have known better than to expect a reasonable conversation from her. It's like expecting a shark to go vegetarian. It's just not going to happen. She started off by accusing me of going back on a promise I never even made. She actually said she was hurt by my actions, like she was the one who'd been wronged in all this. Before I could even get a word in, she made this grand statement, saying she was willing to move past it if I wore her dress. How generous of her, right? Maybe I should build a shrine to her, or something to show my eternal gratitude for her forgiveness. But I shut that idea down right away. I told her, very clearly, that it was my day, and I would wear what I wanted. Then, because I apparently love putting myself through more stress, I offered to wear something else of hers as a compromise. But no, that wasn't good enough for Her Majesty. It was her dress or nothing. I'm honestly surprised she didn't demand that I legally change my last name to hers while she was at it. Maybe I should just let her walk down the aisle instead of me. I tried one last time to explain to her that I wasn't comfortable wearing her dress, that I never promised I would, and even suggested she might be confusing me with one of my fiancé's ex-girlfriends. Let's be real, she probably thinks we're all the same, just a bunch of nameless, future mothers of her grandkids. Well, that set her off. She lost it over the phone, calling me a liar, saying I was unworthy and, get this, a witch. Seriously, a witch. What is this, the 1500s? I had enough. I hung up on her and blocked her number. Good riddance, as they say. But oh, that wasn't the end of it. My spineless fiancé then texted me, saying it wasn't fair for me to yell at his precious mommy about the dress. According to him, I'm the one who's blew up. Never mind that his mother was the one throwing insults and acting like a complete lunatic. In his mind, his mom can do no wrong, and I'm just some evil woman trying to take him away from her. I told him to meet me at our house, so we could talk this out face to face. But guess what? He refused, saying he'd come tomorrow. So here I am, waiting for him to find the guts to actually talk to me in person. I called a few of my friends to get their thoughts, and they were just as shocked as I was at how quickly everything had fallen apart. As the night wore on, I found myself sitting in the dark, staring at my engagement ring. It no longer felt like a symbol of love and commitment. Instead, it felt like a chain tying me to a future I wasn't even sure I wanted anymore. I took it off and set it on the nightstand. For the first time, I let myself really consider that this engagement might not end in a wedding after all. Update 3. Well, the day of reckoning finally arrived. My fiancé actually showed up at our house, and I didn't waste a second. I laid into him about his childish behavior and let him know how hurt and angry I was at both him and his mom for trying to pressure me into wearing that hideous dress. He tried to interrupt, probably to defend himself, but I wasn't having it. I cut him off and told him straight up that this was about way more than a dress now. It was about him being willing to throw away our relationship over a piece of fabric.
Of course, he didn't like that.
He had the nerve to say he was only standing up for what was right, as if his mother's ridiculous demands were somehow the morally correct stance in all of this. I wanted to ask him if he left his brain at his mother's house along with his backbone, but I held back. Instead, I calmly pointed out that the wedding dress is a huge part of the wedding day. I told him there was no way I'd wear something I wasn't comfortable with. Then I reminded him that if we were really going to get married, and at this point that was a big if, he should be supporting me, not taking his mother's side over mine. That's when things got really heated. He looked furious, especially because I'd said if we get married instead of when. He started yelling, saying I was planning to cancel the whole wedding over a stupid dress and acting like it was all some kind of joke. Let me tell you, the only joke here was his behavior. I stood my ground and told him that this whole situation was making me question if I even wanted to marry him. And honestly, it was. Because if this is how he acts now, how is he going to behave when we're actually married? Right on cue, he tried to storm out again, his usual move whenever things get tough. But I wasn't letting him run away this time. I followed him, telling him we needed to talk this through, or I would end things right then and there. That's when it happened. He spun around and slapped me, like I was some child who had misbehaved, not the woman he was supposed to marry. I stood there, stunned, as he stormed out of the house and went running back to his mother. The sound of that slap echoed in my ears long after he was gone. I couldn't believe it had come to this. This was the man I thought I loved, the man I thought I knew, and he had just raised his hand to me, all over a dress, all because of his mother's feelings. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't love. This wasn't a partnership. This was abuse, plain and simple. I called my sister right away, and she came over immediately. She helped me pack a bag, because there was no way I could stay in that house another night. That was it, no turning back. There's no way I'm marrying this abusive mama's boy. I texted him right after, telling him it was over. No discussion, no second chances. He'd shown his true colors, and they were uglier than his mother's old dress. Update 4. This morning, I took action. I went to the police station and filed for a restraining order. It'll go to court soon, and I have all the evidence I need. I took photos of the mark on my cheek from where he slapped me, and I have video footage of him coming to and leaving the house. Let's see him try to talk his way out of this one. Filing for the restraining order was both empowering and heartbreaking. As for the wedding, I've decided to turn lemons into lemonade. I'm using the venue to throw an early birthday party for myself. And instead of canceling the honeymoon trip, I'm taking my sister. At least I know she'll always have my back. I also took some advice and unblocked my ex and his mom, big mistake. His mom immediately bombarded my phone with nasty messages. I had to mute them both to keep my sanity. The bitterness in her words was shocking. She accused me of ruining her son's life, called me a gold digger, and told me I was never good enough for her precious boy. I sent one final text to my ex, officially ending things and telling him exactly what I thought of him. He responded with excuses, begging for forgiveness. But you don't get to slap me and then ask for a second chance. This is probably my last update for a while, but I want to thank everyone for your support and comments. It's helped me so much to know that I'm not the one in the wrong here. Final update. I've received so many messages asking what happened after I called off the wedding, so I thought I'd take a moment to answer the most common questions. Thank you again for all your support during this wild time. Question: how did your ex-fiancé react when you officially called things off? Honestly, it was a mess. At first, he didn't believe me. He kept saying I was overreacting and that we could work things out. When he finally understood I was serious, he went back and forth between begging me to reconsider and getting angry. He even tried to guilt-trip me by saying I was breaking his mother's heart. Even after everything, he was more worried about his mom's feelings than mine. The worst part was when he showed up at my apartment unannounced, crying and pleading with me to take him back. I had to threaten to call the police before he would leave. It was emotionally exhausting, but it only made me more certain I'd made the right choice. Question: did you get your money back from the vendors? This was a big headache, but I managed to recover most of it. The venue was actually very understanding when I explained what had happened. They let me transfer the deposit to a different event, so that worked out well. The caterer was a bit tougher, but we managed to agree on a partial refund. The biggest loss was the dress, though, since it had already been altered. The store wouldn't take it back, so I ended up donating it to a charity that provides wedding dresses to military brides. At least some good came out of it. Question: have you had any contact with your ex since the breakup? Very minimal, and only through lawyers. After he showed up at my apartment, I wanted a clear boundary. I'm just glad to have closed that chapter and to be moving forward with my life. I got a restraining order against him. At first, he tried to fight it, but in the end, he agreed to a mutual no-contact order. It's been such a relief not having to deal with him directly anymore. Question: have you heard from your ex's family? Unfortunately, yes. His mother has been on a full-blown smear campaign, telling anyone who will listen that I'm a selfish, ungrateful bride who broke her son's heart. She even tried reaching out to some of my family members on social media, hoping they'd convince me to change my mind. I ended up having to block her on everything. Surprisingly, his dad sent me a private message apologizing for everything and saying he understood my decision. That was unexpected but appreciated. Question: how did your family and friends react? My immediate family has been incredibly supportive. My mom and dad were furious when they found out about everything, especially the slap. They helped me move out of the apartment I'd shared with my ex and even offered to help with any legal fees if I needed them. As for my friends, it was a bit mixed. Most of them were supportive, but a few thought I was making a mistake. One friend even suggested I should have just worn the dress to keep the peace. Let's just say, we're not as close anymore. This whole experience really showed me who my true friends are. Question: what happened to the engagement ring? Oh, the ring, that was a whole drama on its own. At first, I tried to give it back to my ex, but he refused, saying it was a gift. I didn't feel right keeping it, so I decided to sell it and donated the money to a domestic violence shelter. It felt good to turn something painful into something positive. Question: did you really take your sister on the honeymoon trip? Yes, and it was the best decision I could have made. We went to Paris, which has always been my dream destination. It was supposed to be a romantic getaway, but it turned into an amazing sister trip. We did yoga, went hiking, lounged on the beach, and had some deep conversations about life and relationships. It was exactly what I needed to heal and move forward. Question: have you started dating again? Not yet, and I'm in no hurry. This experience taught me a lot about myself and what I want in a partner. I'm taking this time to focus on my own growth and happiness. I've started therapy to work through some of the emotional pain from the relationship, and it's been incredibly helpful. When I do start dating again, I'll be more aware of red flags and won't ignore my gut feelings. And you can bet I'll pay close attention to how any potential partner interacts with their family. Question: do you regret your decision? Not at all.